Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
And a jolly good morning to you. This is Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. A wet day, but nevertheless, our guest here is the former Foreign Minister, Mr. Rohita Bogalagama. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
And thank you for being on Newsline.
My pleasure.
Mr. Bogalagama, can you tell us, what's your take? How's Sri Lanka doing internationally?
Let's look at it. I think Sri Lanka has got pitched into a multilateral stage. It's a good sign. You look at the recent visits of the President, both to, including the G7 when he was invited. It's a good development along with BRICS recently in India, in Goa. That again a good interactive development. BIMSTEC, once again, is a good development which had been throughout there. And also looking at the current visits overseas stemming from the UN visit in September, I think the positioning of Sri Lanka, what I did expect, is on course towards greater interactive relationships built up. Having said that, you have also to translate this connectivity into meaningful agendas as well as meaningful trajectory for development. Now that is something to be seen, like the visit of the Prime Minister to the EU. But what have they pledged? It's about 220 million euros.
Didn't sound much to me.
Not at all, not at all. In fact, for a period of 4 years, it's not at all in the level at which you look at towards collaborative or supported, assisted aid or credit lines. So we need something more substantial to happen out of all these development efforts in the overseas as much as in the international arena. So towards that, I think is a responsibility of the government to guide Sri Lanka's stakes in the correct manner to harness the wide potential that is there, particularly in Asia, at this very moment.
Mr. Bogalagama, just going back to the aid, Sri Lanka is now obviously in a post-war situation, so necessarily the aid won't be as robust as it is when we were in a war situation.
There was no aid coming even during the war situation. In fact, that so-called environment in which Sri Lanka was getting aid long years ago is no longer possible in the world context. What is happening now is on credit.
Immediately after the war.
Yeah, immediately after the war, again, we had major credit lines getting opened up. During the war too, there was good assistance coming through, though our expense level was very high because of our commitment on the military effort. Having said that, I think the development agenda that got unleashed after 2009 May, having won the war effort, were unprecedented. Today you see the results of that development materially manifested with the highway networks, with the road networks, with the rural road development, etc.
But actually, you know, whilst all these developments are necessary to a point, we are saddened. I'm certainly saddened when I've gone around and seen what our network is doing on the Gammata program, where we're going right throughout the country and looking at the troubles of what we call the forgotten people, the rural mass of this country. And wouldn't it have been better for development to be put in place where, you know, you encourage young people, for example, in the IT sector, instead of us having, in essence, IT sweatshops here. It's the new thing. Those days we had the apparel industry sweatshops, and now we have what I call the IT sweatshops. So you have international companies coming here, paying our youth maybe $400-500 a month, and thinking this is the end of it all. But wouldn't it have been better to have encouraged, to have systems in place and infrastructure in place here to help the youth to take maximum advantage of these things and not become a sweatshop. Just as an example, I want to say it to you.
Of course.
Now, I know a chap who has got a lovely app to sell tailor-made holidays. Now, he went to his bank and they wanted something like ₹1 million in backup, in a sort of security, before they could put him onto a payment gateway. That boy doesn't have ₹1 million. I don't think he's got 100,000 rupees. So that's the kind of development.
Yes. Faraz, now look at how we have to address a country post-conflict, country development agenda. Against that, what we went through since the liberalization of the economy. Now the sweatshop talk that you brought out. In fact, the time I was chairman of the Board of Investment of Sri Lanka, we were having the 200 garment factory program. In that, employment was created, exports were generated, and there was an additional income that was sent into the rural, to the hinterland of Sri Lanka. It was a good concept of President Premadasa, and the BOI managed that program through. And I was happy to see people come in and getting more jobs during the time I myself was chairman of the BOI. Having said that, during the time, we got into more advanced level of development in the 2000 decade. I myself was very keen in encouraging the IT development, and I had the interaction with Infosys. Mr. Narayana Murthy, the mentor of Infosys, he came to Sri Lanka twice at my invitation. At that time, he requested to set up campuses, IT campuses like that of Infosys. What do you need? You need human resources at the level at which English can be spoken. English education. I shared this with the Honorable Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe at that time. I think we were on course to get more and more IT-related development in this country. But for that, even after 10 long years or 14 long years, India in 2016, have we got the type of campuses that India is having in the IT sector? Now that is the issue. And how to create that? We need a robust English-speaking youth in this country who can work in the IT field. Now that is something that the investors are demanding for, looking for.
The investors are demanding, but I put it to you that there is not much scope for earning ill-gotten money as much as, say, when you're building a highway. And so, you know, in my suspicious mind, all right, and in my mind it's always, perennially, perpetually suspicious. All right?
Yeah.
So, do you know what I mean?
No, I'm getting to the point. I think what you see in terms of physical development, state-aided or state-handled, may lead to elements of so-called suspicious issues in terms of estimates against what has to be actually paid for and what has been paid for, etc., in terms of those are auditing processes that will determine. I think a good analysts will be able to sector this out and point out as to how these things have to be done or how it has been done, with the right or wrong. Having said that, still you need we are going by post-mortems, a lot of it in this country, but are we having some proactive systems through which we can have the checks and balances on the type of running audits that we can easily carry out on the big projects? I think this is vital.
You can have that, but there needs to be a commitment to respect the law and to respect the procedures. The Rajapaksa administration was no different from the Kumaratunga administration, and hers was no different from the one before, and this is no different from all the others. So it's a perpetual problem.
So I would correct you there. For us, the issue here is you can repeatedly stand on some position that you have already taken on issues. But how do you address the escalation of prices, etc., like how this government is now saddled with? Now here, last one of the leading newspapers, English newspapers, carried on Sunday. the cost escalation on the Central Expressway.
Yeah.
Some 12 billion rupees.
Yeah.
Now, just superficially speaking, one may attribute that to the elements that you were speaking on, very suspicious conduct.
Yeah.
Now, those are words that we can use, but material, when you say whether in fact...
But we can use, I can use a definitive term.
Yes, I think it's better.
Talking about that Central Expressway, there was a concerted effort to pass off a commercial loan from a Japanese bank, which was issuing the facility, to pass it off as a government-to-government project. And then, of course, it would be only open to Japanese companies. Now, this was not a JICA-funded project. This was a facility from a commercial bank at commercial interest rates. And one thing that caught my eye was that the insurance amount, and this is now 2016, 7 years after the end of the war, it was 10.07%, an astonishing premium in what I would call peace times. Soon after the war, under the Rajapaksa years, they turned it down to single digits. I can't remember the exact figure, but if somebody wants to contact us and tell us, we'll be happy to listen to it. It's around 6%, if I'm not mistaken, 6 or 7% soon after the war. Why on earth it had to be in double digits this time round is beyond the comprehension of most liberal-minded people.
So that is where you need a comprehensive system through which the transparency can be measured. Now here is a new government in office.
Yeah.
This government has all the tools in hand, the public mandate for good governance, public mandate in order to execute projects in the most transparent manner and to set the record straight from what has been happening in the past. Now towards these three elements, let us drive the current government to be more, I would like to use the word pressurized, but more corrected in terms of their approaches. That is why the Parliament should become a good forum. I hope Parliament has several oppositions as much as several governments in one government, so to say. You have parties
again,
joined with the opposition, parties with...
The makeup of this government is again a complete whitewash, because if they had stuck to the principles of the 19th Amendment, we'd have only 45 cabinet or 40 cabinet members. Instead, by labeling it a national unity government and so on, they've managed to bypass that. It's the same. This Prime Minister obviously premeditated intent. Before he came in, he's obviously decided he's going to split the finance ministry into three. So all the statutes and the laws speak of the minister in charge of the subject of finance. But then when you go into it, you have one lot of the finance ministry with Kabir Hashim, another one with Ravi Karunanayake, and another one under the Prime Minister himself. So this is a symbol that was pre-made. And so when we had the issue of the central bank governor and the advice that the president is supposed to get, the statute talks of the minister in charge of the subject of finance. But the minister in charge of the subject of finance didn't have the central bank under him. So this is all lopsided.
I think, Faraz, now you wanted good governance.
Yes.
Here is the government that you put in place. Now they are experimenting the principles associated that they believe is right in terms of addressing their administrative responsibilities. What ministries are for and what ministers are meant for is to carry out the administrative responsibilities within the policy framework to which they have been elected to govern, to be executed accordingly. Now here in the event the Prime Minister thinks it's best that he has a divided arrangement through which the responsibilities are carved out in order to address some of his priorities. Maybe it is the government that he has decided to be so. And also, the President has also agreed with.
You're using the absolute right terminology, because you've said he decided, he thinks. And, it's all fine if he has the mandate. he
After
doesn't
all,
have the
leaders
mandate.
are meant to decide
Yes, but he doesn't
in
have
terms
the
of what his party is, what his government should be, etc.
I think he's forgotten his station in
Now,
life.
that can be a matter of comment, observation, a matter of opinion, but fundamentally what I look at, let the government serve the purpose for which they have been elected. If not, let them answer to the people when it comes to the turn, when the elections have to be decided. I think that's how the governments are to be accounted in terms of their responsibilities. On the wayside, today what you see more, that's the worrying factor in terms of discussing political issues. That is, people have come to the street in terms of protest all the time, continuously, regularly, and it has become more than a fashion, it has become a trend in this country. You take your issues to the street. Those days issues were more contentious, more threatening Sri Lanka's sovereignty, integrity, etc., etc., but all were confined to the will of the House. And in the Parliament, you address these issues, both the responsible opposition, very responsible government, and this went on. And these, I think, are good hallmark of a democracy getting nurtured within the House, but not on the street.
Yeah.
I don't believe good governance means street protests all the time. Then you have to address the core issues that are leading to the street protests in this country, from the students to the farmers to the fishermen, etc.
Yes, but the people must ultimately have that expression, that freedom to express themselves openly, without obviously delving into the realm of fighting and
No, I don't think they have gone that far.
Yeah.
What is worrying here is, why is the agitation becoming so intense in terms of lack of attention being paid to their issues?
Well, that's right, you just said it. It is because of the lack of attention.
Yeah. So if that is the case, government should take it, and these matters should be addressed in the House, with the joint opposition, the government, all sides put together. Having said that, we should not allow it to get festered. Then the public opinion will change very fast against the government, because people will not want to tolerate whatever section that is denied or deprived. So that means the government should get their act right to get their message across, address the issues that are stemming up. Take, for instance, the plantation issues, the plantation prices, the coconut prices, the farm gate prices, the palm oil imports. All that comes into this entire system.
Plantation sector, I know that they've just agreed to pay them 730 or whatever it is. It's absolutely appalling. I'd like to take Navin Disnaika, I'm sure he knows this as well, around to the line houses. And then I'd like to show him a clip of how well our teas are doing overseas, and then ask him to compare the lot of the plantation workers, and they're confined to these rooms, maybe by 12 by 15 or 10 by 15. Generations live in there.
100 years.
Father, mother, children, grandchildren, they all live in this same one space. There are wide-ranging social issues and so on, and it's appalling. It's absolutely appalling that this industry, with this huge brand, Ceylon tea, cannot pay more attention to the plight of the people who are actually producing it, and they've just forgotten it. What is 700 rupees? What 21,000 a month? I challenge anyone to live properly with that.
So I think, Faraz, what you will look at in terms of not only wage side of the wage, but how you earn the wage, through whom you earn the wage. And now this is the struggle, or I would say the challenge the plantation sector is having. Whether the plantation companies could support an adequate, satisfactory, pleasant wage to their workers. Now, to do so, what about the markets? What about the cost of inputs? What about their holdings, etc., etc., is a cascading effect. One has to owe the other. I'm not, standing for the plantation company, but I want to stress one thing out. This country has an issue fundamentally characterized as high cost of production, whatever sector. So that is an area that we all have to put our heads together and see what are the tools through which we can lower the cost of production, if there's a way, and increase the higher production and gain a better sales advantage overseas. That's where our markets are. And how to penetrate the overseas market. We can't be just going by the traditional systems that we practice. We have to penetrate markets up to the shelves where our products can get displayed. We have to get hold of the multinational companies that are dominating the world markets. We need Walmarts, etc., to be part of our marketing drive in the whole world.
I take note of what you say, but I'm just getting a question in from a viewer, and I love this question because it reflects the whole essence of this program, which is that sometimes it gets rather contentious. So the question is, Sri Lanka is a emerging economy, and we're not very rich. Does this mean that we have strict policies in place in terms of budgets when our ministers travel abroad? And they're asking this question to you because you kind of have a reputation as a high-spending, much-traveled foreign minister. What's your response?
Yeah, in fact, how ministers have to travel is very subjective at a given location.
Yeah.
If you have been tasked with the responsibility to address issues from Geneva to New York to Washington to New Delhi to Tokyo and these places, obviously the cost will be in line with where you are visiting and what you are doing at those locations.
Yeah.
Having said that,
yeah,
if you take continuously, now if I have traveled a lot,
yeah,
I'm sure my successors along with the other government leaders have traveled much more in a post-conflict scenario than during the conflict.
Do you have much input on which hotel you stay? Say you're in London, because I'm familiar with London, okay? So when you're in London, do you have a choice? Do you, instead of staying at the Portman Churchill, do you say I'll stay at the Dorchester or I stay at the Hilton? Because obviously all the prices are completely different.
Obviously. In fact, the choice is not ours. Choice is in the hands of the High Commissioners.
Right.
In the given location. They know what hotels have the best rates for Sri Lanka. There are rates that are being given to the defense.
So if just as a matter of argument,
yeah,
if he was to have booked you at the Park Lane, Hilton Park Lane, and you really preferred the Portman Churchill because it was easy to get to Selfridges, how would you sort it out?
No, it doesn't relate at all. What relates to me is the convenience in terms of what I have gone for, how I can discharge my responsibilities. Likewise, every minister I think is looking at that way. And a lot of leaders, at one time we had to be very serious about security. Some of the hotels gave us that assurance of greater security and the protocol. And a lot of hotels have been working with the countries, given countries' security detail. Yeah. If you take for London, yes, of course,
that's
since 1994, I have been at the London Hilton from the time I was chairman of the Board of Investment of Sri Lanka.
Right.
So that's throughout the system. That's a preferred hotel of the Sri Lankan High Commission in London, because it has the good location, convenience, and reasonable rates. If you take for New Delhi, it is the Taj Palace. I think even recently the Prime Minister was there at the Taj Palace. Those are the officially nominated locations in which the VIPs have been hosted. So thereby, these are choices not level or left in the hands of the ministers.
This program would be incomplete if I didn't ask you this question, because at one point in your parliamentary career, you were the head of CORP. And so you must have some views on the bond matter. Have you been following?
Yes, of course, very intensely. And I watched some of your programs on that as well, when Dr. Vijayawardena was on show here, and who was the former deputy governor. And I think that is a saga, in my opinion, a never-ending process through which it is going before the CORP on one hand, The COPE report, I think it is expected around next week.
Yeah.
And internally, I see a lot of reports after reports being called for. Some are complete, some are incomplete.
Yeah.
Some comments are comments, some no comments. But in terms of the right for information,
Yeah.
I think a lot of these things have to be out in public domain for greater discussion and debate, I take it. That is the value. Now, in the event you call it a scam, let us see whether it's a scam, whether there is certain criminal elements associated with it, etc., etc.
Our primary statement has always been what was raised at that initial cabinet meeting when they were deciding on who should head the central bank. And quite rightly, as it turns out, Champika Ranawaka, Rajat Sen Ratna, somebody called Maithripala Sirisena, who's actually the president, also raised the same concern. And that was a potential and a real possibility of a conflict of interest position. We have, the Sunday Times carried a interview with Mr. Mahendran at the time, in which, soon after that bond, the first bond, in which he said that his son-in-law had moved away from the board. He forgot to tell them that they had control at that time through another company. But these are all nice words. The bottom line, of course, is, and what people mustn't forget, is that 90%, nearly 90% of the bonds that were sold by a particular company went to the EPF ETF, when the EPF have a position as a primary dealer, which means they didn't have to go into the second tier to buy. That's questionable. That's suspicious. And the people want to know the answers. And like you say, the right to information, it should all be out.
So that's what the position is in the event. A lot of these things can come out to public domain in terms of discussion, because these are serious stuff. And also the Parliament is a good forum to address most of it.
Yeah.
I hope the COPE will carry out their responsibilities, though they may not have the teeth to bite the issue. They can also reflect in terms of their opinion, in terms of what has happened. Thereafter, the follow-up action lies
But I
with
think
the
really,
executive.
don't you think, Mr. Bogolagama, that the people now, they probably feel that they can replicate what went on in the previous administration and get away with it, accepting that the ambience in terms of the right to speak out, the freedom of expression and so on, those things is one of the most important matters that this government put into place. To their credit, we have to acknowledge that, and therefore everybody is able to talk about this and to try to hold these people accountable.
So I think talking will not hold anyone accountable. Taking action on the talk will make the difference.
Well, our President, we've just come to the end of the program, unfortunately, but on that note, our President, Maithripala Sirisena, and he's indeed our President, complete with mandate, has started to walk the talk, because his absolutely super speech last week has set the cat amongst the pigeons, and everybody is suddenly geared up, which is, I think, a wonderful opportunity. Very quickly, what do you think?
In fact, that's what the President is meant for. He can't be just an observer of the process.
But he's not, is he now? No, he's
I think I'm very happy he's speaking for himself in terms of what he believes is right.
Wonderful, thank you.
What believe is right.
Thank you, Rohita Bogolagama, for being on Newsline. We appreciate your presence. And on this rather wet day, take care as you get about your business. Have an excellent day, and God bless.
Thank you.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.